Here's what we're talking about today. The regime of Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro has fallen. A lightning-fast US operation in Caracas. Counterattacks by the Ukrainian armed forces in Pokrovsk. The current situation on the front line. The Iranian government fears street protests and threatens to strike American military bases. Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council Dmitry Medvedev called Finland's independence a mistake. Russian special services are carrying out sabotage operations in the Gulf of Finland. The successor, Kim Jong Un, the North Korean dictator, is preparing a replacement for himself. And also, where is Putin hiding and who is standing in for him at official events? All this and more in the program Ukraine Today. Hello, my name is Fedor Shevchenko. Please subscribe, like, comment, and let's get to the news. Hello, my name is Fedor Shevchenko. Please subscribe, like, comment, and let's get to the news. Caracas in 3 hours. American special forces captured and removed the dictator Nicolás Maduro from Venezuelan territory. It is reported that the Venezuelan dictator was taken prisoner by Delta Force, the elite special operations unit of the US Army. Mom, what the hell? What kind of losers are these? Mokari, just look at how this absolutely incredible thing, it's already getting noticeably thicker, so why isn't it getting even thicker than it is now? Fucking hell, she squeezed her legs together, and this fucking thing As part of the operation, the Americans launched a massive missile strike on Venezuelan military and government facilities. Donald Trump called the operation brilliant. Secretary of State Marco Rubio once again reaffirmed his previous statements. In his opinion, Maduro is the president of the local drug cartel. U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi stated that Maduro and his wife have been charged with narco-terrorism. They will soon stand trial in New York. Meanwhile, the Belarusian regime, friendly to Nicolás, led by dictator Alexander Lukashenko, issued a strong condemnation of American aggression. The Russian Foreign Ministry is demanding an explanation for the aggression, as well as information regarding the removal of Nicolás Maduro and his wife from the country. The armed forces of Ukraine are holding the northern part of Pokrovsk. According to the command of the Ukrainian forces Vostok, in the central part of the city, Ukrainian soldiers are blocking the enemy's advance. Search and assault operations and the elimination of the enemy in urban areas are underway. Meanwhile, in Myrnohrad, fighters are holding defensive lines and eliminating the enemy on the approaches to the city. And this is footage from the Zaporizhzhia direction. On the outskirts of Huliaipol, where a soldier from the 225th Separate Assault Regiment single-handedly in a firefight sent to Kobzon's concert 3 Russian soldiers at once. More on what is happening at the front and around it at this moment in our report.
The successful elimination of several dozen Russian soldiers and collaborators in the occupied village of Kalishte in the Kherson region. On New Year's Eve, drones struck a resort on the Black Sea coast where Russian occupiers and their accomplices had gathered around a Christmas tree with Ded Moroz and Snegorochka.
The drones were apparently hovering somewhere over the sea, and the first reconnaissance drone that came closer guided them right to the target just minutes before. Just before the chimes at midnight. That was the first drone, then came the second and the third. The most important thing is that this shows it was a planned operation, either as an act of intimidation or to disrupt negotiations. It was a drone carrying an incendiary explosive device, which caused the fire that couldn't be put out until almost 6 in the morning. And they couldn't get close to help those who were still inside. But basically everyone who didn't manage to get out, there were more than 100 people in the cafe.
The occupiers acknowledged at least 27 people as killed in action. Later, they reported the identification of 13 more bodies. Of course, the traitor of Ukraine, Saldo, does not disclose the exact number of people injured in the strike. And no matter how much Russia's puppets try to portray it as a terrorist attack, witnesses say otherwise. Even before the invasion, there weren't many locals in the small settlement, especially in winter. The Russians closed off access to the territory in Karli back in 2022. Military personnel settled in the holiday resorts, and the entire coastline turned into a complete military training ground.
Who could have been in that cafe during curfew? It couldn't have been locals. There are hardly any local young people left there. Everyone has left. There's nothing for elderly pensioners to do in that cafe. There were military personnel there, receiving certificates and awards and possibly members of their families.
Overall, most of the current obituaries and posts from Karli are about dead collaborators and traitors. Some of them are executioners and sadists.
Meanwhile, according to deep state analysts, the Russians have made advances in the Seversk area, specifically near the settlements of Reznikovka, Predtekne, and Dorozhniyaki. The head of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Brovdi, also known as Madyar, reported that on the first day of the new year, the occupiers advanced sluggishly and mostly in small groups. Nevertheless, Ukrainian drone operators managed to hit 1,105 unique enemy targets. On the Kupiansk direction, which the Russians have still failed to capture, they are using scorched earth tactics. According to servicemen of the defense forces, the Russian army is shelling positions all day long with every type of artillery. The city has not yet been completely cleared of infiltrating occupiers. Meanwhile, in 2026, the Russian army continues to wage war against civilian infrastructure. A zoo in Kharkiv, a home goods store in Zaporizhzhia, as well as apartment buildings in these cities, came under drone strikes. During the day on January 2nd, the occupiers struck the Kyievsky district of Kharkiv with ballistic missiles, hitting a residential building. At least 24 people were injured.
US citizens are being urged to leave Russia as soon as possible. And those who still remain in Russia are strongly advised not to use their social media accounts at all. This was reported on Fox News, citing a statement from the US State Department. Against the backdrop of the Russian-Ukrainian war, the risks of unlawful detentions are high, especially for statements made online about this issue. That is why the State Department is warning Americans about the high risks. There have already been multiple instances where Russian security services have arrested Americans on fabricated charges. They were denied a fair trial. Therefore, being in Russia right now is very dangerous for Americans. Iran is threatening to strike American military bases in the Middle East. The Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, stated that US bases will become targets for Iran if Washington intervenes in the protests in the Republic. It should be noted here that the Ayatollah's regime is currently facing major problems. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians have taken to the streets to protest. Security forces have opened fire to kill. There are casualties. The protests have spread to at least 18 out of the country's 31 provinces. People are setting police cars on fire, throwing stones at them, and attacking police stations. The security forces are responding with firearms and tear gas. According to comprehensive media reports from various international outlets, dozens of innocent people have tragically been killed and hundreds more have been severely wounded, leading to widespread concern and condemnation. These significant and increasingly volatile protests initially began on the 28th of December in the bustling capital city of Tehran. The primary catalysts for this widespread civil unrest were the dramatic and sudden collapse of the national currency, the rial, and the crippling effects of massive unchecked inflation, which had alarmingly reached an unprecedented and devastating 52%, severely impacting the daily lives of ordinary citizens. While one of Putin's buddies is relaxing in an American prison and Khamenei's position is seriously shaking, the Russian dictator continues to hide behind his body doubles. Different Putins addressed Russians on New Year's Eve. And it wasn't even a human double, but an artificial avatar. The substitution was noticed and proven by investigative journalists. The results of the investigation are in our report. Instead of Putin, Russians
were congratulated by an artificial avatar, artificial intelligence. The New Year's address of the Russian dictator may have been generated using artificial intelligence. Analysts from Inform Napalm drew attention to this. They noted that on December 31st, Russia saw two Putins at once. A few minutes before midnight, the official Kremlin website published the New Year's address of the Russian dictator in a black tie. A few minutes later, the video disappeared and was replaced by another, almost identical one, but this time with a red tie. It might seem like a small detail, but it was precisely this that triggered a much bigger question. Who was actually speaking to Russians that night? A real person or a digital avatar?
Here's what's truly monstrous about this. It's not even about what Putin says. It's about how many people in Russia actually believe it.
But it seems that Russians have indeed started to doubt. Despite the replacement, the first version of the video still made it to air with regional providers. Viewers in the Orenburg region, Bashkortostan, and other regions of Russia saw it. Some providers blamed what happened on technical glitches. However, thousands of users had already seen the alternative greeting and started comparing them. And the difference turned out to be not just in the color of the tie.
Someone noticed that it seemed as if the greeting was generated by artificial intelligence.
It looked like he didn't have any hands, just empty sleeves.
The content of the speech also raised suspicions. For the first time in a quarter of a century, Putin did not say the usual phrase about the year being difficult. This was exactly what Russians perceived as the main marker of inauthenticity. After all, they consider 2025, against the backdrop of war, loss, and declining living standards, to be one of the hardest years ever.
He didn't say that this year was difficult. It's artificial intelligence. His hand is small and he speaks strangely.
For the first time, even among loyal viewers, questions arose. Additional resonance was caused by the fact that the version of the address with the black tie was broadcast not only by regional operators, but also on third-party Russian platforms, including the website of the Moscow City Veterans Home, an official institution connected to Moscow's social support system. At the same time, this same video was being distributed in closed military chats and internet communities. Later, information emerged about a massive cyber attack and the hacking of some of these resources. But even this explanation did not resolve the main question. Why did the Kremlin end up with several versions of the same New Year's address in the first place? Analysts from Inform Napalm point out that this is not an isolated incident. In 2023 to 2025, Putin's New Year's address displays a suspicious visual sameness.
Every year, the dictator's addresses, created with the help of his digital avatar, are published on the official Kremlin website. In other words, the official Kremlin is actively using artificial intelligence technologies to create the annual addresses. The same background behind Putin is used each time, only the avatar's ties are changed. Perhaps that is precisely why such a situation has arisen, where it is no longer clear which of the avatars is real, which one has been replaced, and which one is declaring the specific policy assigned to him by a particular Kremlin faction. Already now, it can be said that Putin not only may have body doubles, but he also already has avatars for standard greetings and events, so as not to distract the aging terrorist number one for filming.
The main address of the year. The New Year's address lasted only 3 minutes and 21 seconds, the shortest in the entire history of the full-scale war. In 2022 and 2024, it lasted 9 minutes each, and in 2023, almost 4. The main emphasis, of course, was on the war and supporting the occupiers. At the same time, the bunker dweller once again droned on about the unity of the people, a 1,000-year history, and how the personal plans of Russians are inseparable from the fate of the motherland. There was almost no specifics about the country's development, the economy, or peaceful prospects.
Naturally, he doesn't announce the losses. It's not in his interest because the losses are enormous. Of course, to announce them out loud on air is impossible for him because he needs that reserve to keep being replenished. And with such huge losses, even an ordinary person will do some simple math, come up with a formula, figure out what the chances of survival are if you go there and realize they're minimal. But he absolutely needs to keep replenishing that human reserve. Unfortunately, he plans to keep fighting.
And that perhaps is the most accurate summary of 2020 of the year. The country waging war against Ukraine entered 2026 with ongoing aggression, empty words, and AI-generated avatars instead of real people.
Sabotage continues. Once again, an undersea communication cable between Finland and Estonia has been damaged in the Gulf of Finland. The incident was recorded on December 31st, and Finland promptly detained the cargo ship Fitberg, which was traveling from St. Petersburg to Haifa with its anchor chain lowered in the area of the cable break. President Alexander Stubb confirmed the investigation and emphasized that this is about protecting critical infrastructure. Here are the details.
Sabotage on the open sea. On December 31st, Finnish police detained the vessel Fitburg, which was traveling from St. Petersburg to Haifa, Israel, on suspicion of damaging an underwater telecommunications cable laid from Helsinki to Estonia across the Gulf of Finland.
Whether the actual primary purpose of this particular vessel was to transport various cargo, spanning the vast distance from St. Petersburg all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, remains a truly significant and unresolved question to this day. How? In many significant cases, vessels of the so-called Russian shadow fleet, which are actively sailing under various international flags but are still widely referred to as Russian, are first and foremost under comprehensive sanctions. And secondly, as soon as you begin to thoroughly investigate and start digging deeper, suddenly Russian flags are prominently raised on them, and they get officially registered in the Russian registry, thereby confirming their true origin and affiliation.
According to media reports, 14 crew members from Russia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan have been arrested. The detainees began to be interrogated on the evening of December 31st.
First and foremost, it was necessary to gather information because the situation keeps escalating. There is increasing criticism from European Union countries about the lack of a tough response to incidents that occur on a regular basis. If this had been just a one-off incident somewhere, and nothing like this had happened again, then you could say, unfortunately, it happened, that's how it is, but it won't happen again, and so on.
The police stated that they are investigating interference with telecommunication systems under aggravating circumstances, as well as sabotage and attempted sabotage under aggravating circumstances.
There are two different concepts in international maritime law. The first is the regime of maritime waters. The second concept is the regime of the seabed. This is the so-called exclusive economic zone. In exclusive economic zones, everything on the seabed and beneath it is the property of the coastal state. Any illegal actions are subject to severe legal and criminal prosecution with potential significant penalties.
Finnish authorities have also launched an underwater investigation in the area where the cable was damaged.
We understand the geography. Finland, Sweden, and Norway, which are not part of the EU, are essentially three countries that are cut off from the rest of Europe, because by land they can only reach continental Europe through Russian territory. And when vital communication cables that provide essential connectivity between Northern Europe and the European mainland are systematically being deliberately cut, that's a significant and serious problem. And that's something you might conceivably do if you were actively preparing to launch an attack on Northern Europe.
The Finnish National Bureau of Investigation stated that there are certain distinguishing circumstances in the current incident that are similar to previous cases. Damage to underwater infrastructure in the Gulf of Finland.
I believe it's long overdue for the European Union to change its protocols. The behavior in the Baltic Sea, both regarding the shadow fleet tankers and the incidents where cables are cut, because this is not an accident, it's a deliberate course of action, and accordingly, it needs to be addressed. And when you don't address it, you get repetition.
Wednesday morning, on the eve of the new year 2026, the Finnish telecommunications operator Elisa discovered a malfunction in its cable and reported this to the Finnish authorities. The company also stated that the damage in no way affected the operation of their services and that all of them had been rerouted.
The Gerasimov Doctrine, the hybrid warfare doctrine of General Gerasimov, which was first proclaimed back in 2007, or more precisely formulated then, has since been fleshed out, given real substance, through actual activities during a certain period. Somewhere after 2014, and in parallel with the large-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia's actions against European countries intensified. The Russians are waging a hybrid war against Europe.
It should be noted that a year ago there was already a similar incident involving damage to underwater cables connecting Finland and Estonia.
Communism is coming apart at the seams because of stuffed pockets. In China, an official was sentenced to death for corruption. The scale of the corruption is impressive. The former mayor of Haikou was found to have 13.5 tons of gold, 23 tons of cash, luxury real estate in China and abroad, as well as a collection of expensive cars. The investigation established that he acquired assets worth billions of dollars through bribes for government contracts and land deals. She is being prepared as a successor. Kim Jong Un's daughter visited the state mausoleum. Reuters notes that over the past 3 years, Jue has been appearing more and more frequently in state media, fueling speculation among analysts and South Korean intelligence that she may become the country's fourth-generation leader, that is, Kim Jong Un's successor. Our journalists know the details.
Kim Jong Un is losing power. A replacement is being prepared for the North Korean dictator. The daughter of North Korea's leader Kim Jong Un, Kim Ju-ae, visited the Kumsusan mausoleum with her father, where she paid tribute to former leaders. Kim Ju-ae has been appearing in public more and more often in recent years. This fuels rumors among analysts and South Korea's intelligence agency that she may become the country's leader as the fourth generation. According to North Korean state media, Kim Ju-ae was reportedly born in the early 2010s. In September, she made her first public trip abroad together with her father. By the way, North Korea has never confirmed Ju-ae's age. Let us recall that Kim Jong Un first allowed his daughter to appear in public during the test launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile in November 2022. This could have been a signal that Kim is preparing a potential successor for himself. At the same time, this won't happen anytime soon, since Kim Jong Un does not have any serious health problems.
There is a very high probability indeed that Kim Jong Un is actively preparing his beloved daughter as his eventual successor to lead the nation. Family, a fundamental unit of society, encompasses individuals connected by blood, marriage, or adoption, sharing emotional bonds and mutual support.
The Kim dynasty has ruled North Korea for 3 generations since its founding after World War II, when the Soviet Union and the United States divided control over the Korean
Peninsula. Once they took power into their own hands, they have never let it go. So yes, most likely it really will be a hereditary dictatorship. Another crucial question is when, in fact, these North Korean elites will truly decide that enough is enough and will try to somehow seize a significant amount of power themselves to take control of their own destiny.
Kim Jong Un came to power after his father's death in 2011. To consolidate his rule, in 2013 he executed his uncle on charges of attempting a coup and corruption, which became his first major act of strengthening his power, aimed at eliminating potential rivals and establishing complete control.
North Korea is one of the most brutal dictatorships that exists today. Nevertheless, as we can see, so many years have passed and it still endures, including by means of this kind of the most brutal, I would even say unnatural selection, in a truly brutal manner, when they kill their own relatives, reminiscent of how it was in the earliest of very ancient times indeed.
North Korean leader Kim Jong Un is turning into one of the bloodiest dictators of our time, easily eliminating those he dislikes and political rivals among top officials and even his closest relatives. That's why most likely the public presence of his daughter is simply an image of a stable family. Kim's daughter, whom by the way he kept hidden for a long time.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Strength to the Ukrainian defenders, and to the women defenders, glory to Ukraine. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and see you next time.